on G4G, and it's Napalm Dawn, and today we're going to talk about Moonstone in Marvel Avengers Alliance and Marvel Strikeforce. Similar to the last video in which we compared Kang in Marvel Strikeforce to Marvel Avengers Alliance, we don't really have a lot of other games to discuss Moonstone being an active roster participant. As a matter of fact, the only two that I know, similar again to Kang, is Marvel Strikeforce and Marvel Avengers Alliance. So let's go ahead and get into it. In Marvel Avengers Alliance, her bio was Dr. Carla Soferin originally became a psychologist not to help others but to manipulate them. When the original Moonstone became her patient, Carla convinced him to give up the Kree Life Stone that he had stolen. Carla then absorbed the stone herself, gaining the powers of flight, intangibility, gravity manipulation, and more. Her recent signs of reform may be genuine or may simply be another psychological power play. So let's go ahead and take a look at her kit when she was in Marvel Avengers Alliance. As you can see here, she was both a hero and an enemy boss. The boss picture definitely looks a little bit more evil. The hand looks a little more alien-ish, kind of claw-ish, whereas the hero one looks a little bit more heroic. And it was joked about at the time that Moonstone had a boob window, but it is not really so much a boob window as it is a gold set of cloth underneath her white outer fabric. So it's I guess you could say a boob shadow box. So she came to us in Marvel Avengers Alliance as a tactician, even though she could have sort of been a blaster. Medium health, very low stamina, very high attack, very low defense, pretty low accuracy, and reasonable evasion. So if you were using the pot kettle black method of ISOing her or the PKB method of ISOing her, you'd go for health, attack, and accuracy, and then you would pick evasion over defense. She was a flyer, and she also had psychological manipulation as a passive, which was a chance to apply coward, distracted, disoriented, intimidated, and shell-shocked when an enemy attacks. I don't necessarily know if that is when the enemy attacks her or just attacks her team in general. She was listed as a Dark Avenger, a Master of Evil, and the Thunderbolts. In game canon, the Dark Avengers were Venom, Yelena, I believe was Black Widow, Daken was Wolverine, you had Ares, and you had Bullseye as Hawkeye, and you had Del Rusk rather than Norman Osborn. So you can see here that we gain Ares and Moonstone as heroes, but there was also Ares as a villain, Dark Hawkeye was Bullseye, Ragnarok was Dark Thor, Del Rusk, Daken was Wolverine, Venom was Dark Spider-Man, Vulture was Dark Falcon, Moonstone was Dark Miss Marvel, and Yelena was Dark Widow. There are also the UFOs of Ironclad, Vapor, Vector, and X-Ray, and the Green Goblin in the Iron Patriot armor. And of course, we had the Thunderbolts, which, let's see, in-game was Age of Venom, Black Widow, Blizzard, Boomerang, Deadpool, Elektra, Fixer, Hawkeye, Iron Fist, Juggernaut, Luke Cage, Moonstone, Punisher, Red Hulk, Satana Shocker, Songbird, and Winter Soldier. Villains is pretty much the same, except we added Dark Widow, Green Goblin, and that is about it. Non-game canon, Zemo, Dark Hawkeye, Ghost Rider, Taskmaster, going both ways, Jack-O-Lantern, Vapor, Vector, Venom, X-Ray. And then Moonstone had a Thunderbolt team-up. Her first ability was Forceful Personality, melee, unarmed. It did extra damage if she was phased. And it also did immobilize, which is unable to use melee abilities. Her level 2 is what got her phased. It would blind one enemy and it would give her phased. It was ranged energy radiation. Her 3, or her third ability, or her level 6, also had phase disruption. It was subtle. All enemies would become exhausted. They would also become heavy, where flying characters were no longer immune to ground attacks. They could not dodge most attacks, and all allies got gravity well, increased the damage of melee and energy attacks. She had singularity, which was charging up and multifunction. She gained singularity as a buff, unlocks Big Bang, but can be removed if successfully attacked or forced to recharge. Increases the damage done by Big Bang. It stacks up to 5 times. This multifunction converted over to Big Bang, which was catastrophic, deadly crits, and powered up, which is you needed to use singularity before you could do Big Bang. And there are certain ways of speeding it up. Gravity Syndrome is interesting because it is a tactician doing anti-tactician abilities. That's kind of fun. It's also a flyer doing anti-flyer abilities. That's also very interesting. I think potentially she could exploit her phased advantage over here in one turn if she hits somebody who was flanked with her level 2. So she can go ahead and hit somebody who was flanked with blinding attraction, get phased, and then might actually be able to cash right in on it by following up with forceful personality. She had team-ups of Aviary, Close Encounters, Doctors, Fear of the Dark, Flirt, Masters of Evil, Miss Fake, Pro Precog, Red in the Ledger. Interesting. An actual villain who is pro precognitive justice. Second Chances, Thunderbolts, Untouchable, Walk to Moons. Heroes with moons in their name. And, of course, obviously, Red in the Ledger down in the comment section. She can't counter. Some talk about her ISOs and everything. And actually, let's take a look at what her ISO was. It took a little bit to get there. She had an E-ISO that gave a chance to counterattacks from enemies with coward, distracted, disoriented, intimidated, or shell-shocked. So that means she could probably go well with some psychic characters. And she had a ISO for her Big Bang, where it would give Big Bang phased advantage, which, as you can see here, it does not. So that could make Big Bang even better if you do blinding attraction, singularity. Since it was a buff, it could be made a quick action under certain circumstances and then could go right into the Big Bang while still phased. If we take a look at her around the Marvel sphere, you can see that whereas we're used to boob Shadowbox Moonstone, this was her meteorite uniform, and this is actually where we're going to see her in Marvel Strikeforce. So we're going to wave goodbye to Marvel Avengers Alliance on her now. I always found her to be a fun character. Sometimes a little bit of a setup to make work. I honestly think would be good with Destroyer because of the fact that with some of her abilities over here, she seems to let's see, was it singular? Was it gravity well? Yeah, increases the damage of melee and energy attacks. That is something that Destroyer happens to be phenomenal with, as he had energy attacks like an Obliteration Wave and Disintegration, but he also had a melee attack in Crush. So I think a Destroyer Moonstone team up probably could work on a lot of levels. Here in Marvel Strikeforce, let's take a look at her abilities here and see what she's like. So you can see that she has a different outfit. This is her meteorite outfit. I believe this is around the time of Norman Osborn. Let me see where this one was. The Thunderbolts. Okay. So this was around the time of the Thunderbolts, and what was interesting, she even had an affair with Hawkeye for a little while, which is why she's got that flirt category over on Marvel Avengers Alliance. She's a villain, she's global, she's bio, she's a controller, and she is a master of evil. If we sort Marvel Strikeforce by the Masters of Evil, you will see that, at least for me, the team is now complete. We've got Ultron, Kang, Absorbing Man, and Titania. And Moonstone, of course, Absorbing Man and Titania go together. And she now rounds out the whole Masters of Evil team. It would be very, very interesting, and I think very possible, if Marvel Strikeforce did give us a Thunderbolts team up. I mean, we do have Red Hulk, and we do have some others, so I think it is certainly doable. However, Red Hulk has two teams already because he goes with Gamma, and he goes with the Death Seed team up. So I'm just going to take a few moments over here to go through her kit, just to unlock her abilities. Makes it a little bit easier to discuss over there. I wonder if they would ever give her a uniform that would convert her to her Miss Marvel look or the boob window look. So, her first ability is Spiteful Strike, so we see a melee ability for her, similar to Marvel Avengers Alliance, except it is a kick rather than a punch. It does defense down. It eventually does defense down for 2 turns. If the target is vulnerable, she gains 1 ability energy. So that could be interesting for somebody on Masters of Evil to set her up. And it could potentially be that she would be great as a striker. I haven't looked into her meta yet. She has Dark Whispers. Reduce the speed bar of an enemy with the highest damage, excluding the primary target, by 5%, plus mind control that enemy to attack the primary target. As we level this up, the damage goes up. She does apply a stun to her current target, not the secondary. Apply defense down and a stun to the primary target. And then at the orange level in Crucible, she applies disrupted and trauma. Don't know, other than the fact that the damage goes up, that I would consider that one orange worthy. And in all honesty, her level 1 isn't particularly orange worthy either. We have phasing punishment. So now, taking a look at what we've seen compared to Marvel Avengers Alliance, we've got a physical ability, and here we have a psychological kind of ability, sort of an Emma Frost. So we're not really seeing the energy, but we're seeing her background as a psychologist, and we're sort of seeing MAA's passive come to light as a actual direct ability rather than a passive. Phasing punishment, she attacks the primary and adjacent targets for damage, and then gets a crucible boost. She also reduces the speed bar. She applies a defense down for a maximum of 3, more speed bar, more defense down, more speed bar, and higher damage, but in a crucible, she will stun the primary target. So having 2 stuns on one character, admittedly, is pretty strong. And it always seems to be focused on the primary target, which is interesting. 2 stuns is really strong, but it's mostly contained within Crucible. Outside of Crucible, you're just going to get the 1 stun. And then her passive is Meteorite, further proving that they're using the Meteorite outfit for this and making reference to it. If this character has at least 1 ally, gain an evade up to a maximum of 2. If she has 1 or more Masters of Evil allies, she heals for 10%. If this character has 2 or more Masters of Evil allies, she barriers herself. And then in Crucible, she gains focus, and so do the MOE. Here, level 2, on turn if this character has 3 or more MOE, clear a positive effect from the enemy with the lowest resistance. On turn if a character has an ally, she gains an evade. If she has 4 or more Masters of Evil allies, transfer 1 negative effect, excluding ability block and stun, from herself to the enemy with the lowest resistance. And then finally, at level 5, it is specifically a Crucible ability again. So they are really pushing for her to be a Crucible character. And I would say that I don't truly find her to have a lot of orange-worthy abilities unless you're using her for Crucible. If you're running your MOE in another mode like Blitz or Arena or Raids or something, I think Moonstone will probably be the lowest orange priority for the entire team. Nothing really seems to jump out at me as being worthy of getting your orange upgrades. So there we go. We have now completed the Masters of Evil. I only have Kang and Ultron currently with ISO kits, so I'm not really too sure what the rest of the team is going to wind up having. I need to look it up. I do believe that I think we would find that Moonstone would in fact be a striker. It's the best thing for her. Not really seeing any references to crit or anything like that. So honestly, the best thing for her to do would be to take advantage of the vulnerable that somebody else on the team sets up. So I'm going to guess that if you have the full MOE, somebody is going to be out there doing skirmisher duty, and she is going to be a striker. So there we go, guys. There's Moonstone in Marvel Avengers Alliance compared to Marvel Strikeforce. I always tend to throw a little comment on there as to where I think, what game I think the character is most powerful in. And right now, I gotta say, outside of being a full, complete MOE team, which is a little bit of a dolphin/whale team, I guess you could say, she is probably stronger in Marvel Avengers Alliance, and I think it was easier to build a team around her. And I think if you threw her buffs become a quick action, she's a little bit stronger. I think if you threw her flanked, she is a little bit stronger. And if she was paired up with an agent or a friendly character that liked energy attacks and energy/melee attacks, she's probably going to be a better teammate over in Marvel Avengers Alliance than here in Marvel Strikeforce. That's all for me today, folks. I will catch you in the next video.